I'm not formally trained in anything, actually. I mean, I have a degree in history, so that would be like the most formal training that I have. Otherwise, for both food and flowers, it's just sort of an off-the-cuff type thing. And I started a catering company in my basement when I was 22 in Portland, and that was, 21 years ago.
You're listening to The Taste Podcast. I'm Senior Editor Anna Heasel, and I'm here with Editor-in-Chief Matt Rodbard.
Today on the show, our guest is Naomi Pomeroy, the chef behind Portland, Oregon's Beast and Expatriate, and the author of Taste and Technique. Later on, I'll be asking my friend Dan Holzman a burning food question. So Anna, what did you and Naomi talk about?
Naomi Pomeroy has been really very outspoken voice and writer in the past year or so on the topic, especially of abuse in restaurant kitchens. And I think in the last couple of years, we've been talking about these issues in such abstract terms. I was kind of curious to ask her about what it looks like from a really practical level, just what the nuts and bolts are of running a restaurant kitchen with a really healthy, happy work culture.
And Naomi's actually starting to branch out of the restaurant business, too, a little bit. You talked to her about that?
Yeah, that's right. She just opened a floral design shop in Portland. So we talked about some of the weird, kind of surprising overlap between cooking and flower arranging.
Here's Anna talking to Naomi Pomeroy.
Naomi Pomeroy, welcome to the Taste Podcast.
Thank you so much.
So you are coming from Portland. You opened Beast in Portland about 10 years ago, is that right?
Yeah, 11 now, I guess, but yeah. Yes.
Are diners in Portland eating the same way they did 10 years ago? What's changing?
Oh my God, yeah. Well, not at all, actually. It seems like... people still come to Beast, which is awesome, but it's kind of a special occasion type situation. And I think people are, just like everywhere, it's the same, where everybody's eating more fast casual and kind of healthier and faster. Everyone's like rushing a lot.
That's too bad. They should take their time.
I know. I totally agree. I think it's been interesting. I think I have a cocktail bar across the street that just got written up as one of the best places to eat in Portland, which is great. It's funny because it's just a cocktail bar. So I think that that's just emblematic of how people are dining these days, for sure.
Are we talking about Expatriate?
Yeah.
I went to Expatriate for the first time a few years ago. And the most memorable thing was a raw onion sandwich.
Oh, yeah. The James Beard butter and onion sandwich. That's kind of a classic from him. And he was a Portlander, so I like to give a little kind of nod over to Portland culture.
Has that always been on the menu at Expatriate?
Yep, since day one. Did you like it?
Yeah, I did. I loved it. Is your version any different from James Beard's?
Yeah. His version, and I know this because I was actually in a movie about James Beard's life.
Wow, like a dramatized
movie
really. Or interviewed in a documentary?
It was more like a documentary. It was on PBS. My sandwich is a little different. His had mayonnaise on it. Mine is just butter. It's actually brushed with room temperature butter on one side and then slices of cold butter on the other side as you're building the sandwich.
Ooh.
And then slices of really, really thin raw onion and some crunchy gray salt and chopped up parsley.
What do the two temperatures of butter do for the sandwich?
Yeah. The butter, so like the idea with the soft butter is that it gives you this like nice coating to stick the sandwich together, because if it was just two pieces of cold butter, everything would kind of fall apart. And so it gives you this like kind of the glue, I guess you say. And then the butter that we slice, actually, we slice very, very thin off of like a perfect square of butter so that it fits the sandwich perfectly. And then maybe this sounds gross to listeners, but I don't think it does. I actually, with a clean hand, just warm the butter ever so slightly to sort of just rest it there for just a second and then put the whole sandwich together. So it's not like ice cold, but it has like this, and it looks beautiful because it shows us this very thin slice.
Wow. Is it hard to sell people on the idea of raw onions?
No, people go crazy for that sandwich. And also, it's been written up a bunch of times. Like, Esquire wrote it up, and people are always tweeting about it and stuff like that. So I think it's actually one of the most popular items on the menu over there.
I love it. What else is changing in the Portland restaurant scene right now? What are you seeing a lot of?
Restaurants. I'm seeing a lot of restaurants. We have probably I mean, Portland is a population of like sub 700,000 people. And yet I feel like we have restaurants like New York, and they go like in numbers like New York. It's like crazy. I think we had like 100 restaurant openings like last spring or something.
Oh my goodness.
It's really crazy.
It's a culture of going out though. Portlanders like to eat out, right?
It's true. Yeah, they totally do. And I think it's changing, like the demographics of Portland are changing really dramatically too. So there's like a lot of new people there that are always interested in trying like the latest, greatest. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to figure out how to, I don't know, like maintain this relevancy. And it's an interesting conversation. I'm actually like just added Tuesday nights to my repertoire.
To both restaurants?
No, just Expatriate's open 7 nights a week. But for Beast, you know, we do a set 6-course menu, tasting menu. It's like at 6 or at 8:30, and that's like how we've always done it. And actually, we're totally mixing things up. So Tuesday nights, we're going to start doing a short, like 4-course menu. And you can come whenever you want, and sort of like just you can even eat vegetarian if you want to. So we're just trying
for all the fast people, the people who want to eat really fast.
People. Yeah, I just decided like I would give it a shot and see how it goes. It actually might be something we end up doing on weekdays in general because I'm finding it's so hard for people to get through the traffic of Portland to get all the way over to Beast from downtown, which I used to say took 15 minutes. I used to say it takes anywhere you want to go in Portland, 15 to 20 minutes tops. And now it's like, God, in rush hour, it can be an hour. So it's just things have changed just like everywhere. So it's like just adapting and realizing that I ask people, you know, like, how come you don't come to Beast more often? Like I have great customers that come, you know, once every 2 months or once a month. But I don't have great customers that come every week because it's a set 6-course menu. And they always said that it's not the amount of food. It's just that it takes too long. Like nobody has 3 hours to dine on a Wednesday at 8:30.
It's true. Yeah. Do you feel any pressure to open a new restaurant anytime soon?
Big time. Yeah, actually, I do feel the pressure. Not just the pressure, but the desire. I find that like creativity goes for me in about a 5-year wave of like, you know, I think that's actually how long it takes to do a book in some ways. I mean, not really 5, but it's like when you think of the idea and then you write the proposal and then you pitch it, sell it, and write it. And then it's like it does. It's a pretty long process, like 3 or 4 years. So I feel like creatively speaking, I opened Expatriate when Beast was 5 years old, and I feel like now that Expat is 5, I'm like, what else am I going to do? Like, I feel this burn to do something, but then I'm like, the Portland market feels really saturated. And I've always been a person that I'm not trying to like fit my concept. Like, I'm not going out to try to find a space for a specific concept. Creatively, I work really differently than that. I like look for a space and then figure out what the concept feels like it needs to be. I guess I'm kind of like, I'm a person that waits for opportunity in a different way. And so I'm waiting for the right thing to come down the path, restaurant wise. I have some ideas, but for now I actually am biding my time by opening a flower shop instead. So
yeah, that's right. That opened a few months ago.
Yeah, like 6 months ago, and it's called Colibri, and it's actually pretty close to my restaurants. It's really small, beautiful storefront with lots of plants. It's like a wild tropical jungle in there, and we have events and things. We teach workshops on centerpieces and wreath making and all this stuff, and we do a lot of specialty. We do a lot of weekly accounts, so we actually do other restaurants in town as well as a few clothing stores and things like that. So I have always had a passion for flowers and plants. In 2009, when I got Best New Chef from Kate Crater at Food and Wine, she goes, "What would you be if you weren't a chef?" And I said, "A botanist or a florist." And so
there's a lot of overlap too between those two things.
It's so cool. The overlap
Visually,
is so cool.
There's seasonality to it.
Yeah, things have a smell. Like, you could make a beautiful spread of food. I've been thinking recently, maybe it's like, a potential idea, but I've been thinking about this like beautiful spread that would have like a lacquered duck with like a kumquat sauce and then like a beautiful like centerpiece floral arrangement that had like kumquats and sage and all the flavors. Like there's like actual literal crossover, or can be. And it's also just, in a 3-dimensional way, it's a lot like putting a plate together. I mean, we do eat with our eyes first, and I think color and texture and like a nod toward seasonality is always so important when a plate is put in front of you, that I feel the same way about a flower arrangement.
Edible Arrangements was onto something, right?
I don't know. Their stuff is pretty ugly. And I don't even know if it tastes good. The fruit looks really out of season.
That's true. Maybe you can make a good version of Edible Arrangements someday. Maybe that's the next frontier.
With candied kumquats and sage.
Did I see a picture of Martha Stewart at your flower shop the other day?
You sure did, except that actually that was part of my big week-long journey to New York. So she wasn't at the flower shop. That would be so cool. No, it was me at Martha's offices, and I was doing an arrangement with her for, just to talk about. I was actually doing it in the kitchen department in the culinary side, and so that was fun and funny because everyone sort of gathered around asking me lots of questions about, what it's like to be a chef and a floral designer, and I mean. It's cool. Like we were just saying, it's actually quite similar. I mean, right down to everything except for eating the arrangement. But I was flattered that she liked it.
Had you met Martha before?
I have. Though being the famous star that she is, I don't think she remembered meeting me because she was like, "Oh, it was nice to meet you." Which, I mean, I have a soft spot for that. I hardly ever remember meeting people because it's like there's just so many people that come in and out of the restaurant. So I never mind reintroducing myself to people. But yeah, I think I met her at Food and Wine Festival in Miami, but like a solid 10 years ago. So it's been a while.
Another person who's famous both for her flowers and her food.
It's true. And another person who started out as a caterer, kind of like a lowly caterer. I mean, not lowly, but just, kind of simple compared to what she ended up being.
Right. And that's how you started out your career, right?
I did. Yeah. It's something that I'm not formally trained in anything, actually. I mean, I have a degree in history, so that would be like the most formal training that I have. Otherwise, for both food and flowers, it's just sort of an off-the-cuff type thing. And I started a catering company in my basement when I was 22 in Portland. And
wow,
that was, 21 years ago. So, there's a lot has changed. And the underground dining scene isn't even an underground dining scene anymore. I mean, I think it is, but it's like now official, and it's called a pop-up, and people have taken it above the underground, and it's occupying a different part of our culture now. It's much more widely accepted. But yeah, I started an underground supper club, is what we called it, in 2000, so it's been a hot minute.
Do you think it's getting harder for chefs to start out that way, like kind of with informal training?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's getting harder for chefs. I mean, I think that we're all talking about it. This 0% unemployment that we're talking about is a surprise to all of us who can't seem to find skilled kitchen labor. I mean, no, that's a different podcast. That's a big conversation. But yeah, I think it's harder. I think it's harder to go in sort of with this tiny concept and just hope that people like it. I guess food carts are a little bit like that, food carts. And I mean, I think food carts might be kind of, I don't know if they're over. I never go to them, so I'm not a good barometer of the success of food carts. In some cities,
had a moment though, a few years ago, and it seems to be on its way out a little.
It seems like a lot of those people are sort of using it as a launch pad, much like sort of the pop-up. Mm-hmm. It's like they're going in a few year cycles, right? There was the underground dinner thing in the early 2000s, and then it was food trucks, and now it's pop-ups. And, it's interesting to see what people use as their launch pad. I feel like now what's happening with some of the chefs that maybe aren't as well known is that smart chefs like John and Vinny in Los Angeles are kind of snapping people up and saying you're doing great work, we like your style, we're going to open a place with you. And I think that might be sort of more of the future of some of the mentoring people being the people who are funding and backing future restaurateurs, because I don't think you can. I mean, I opened Beast for $60,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's unheard of now, right?
I mean, I couldn't even open it for less than like 250 now, and it would probably be more than that. So whether it's inflation or what it is, I mean, I think it's also the willingness to, well, for me, because I was younger, it was like the willingness to be so shoestring that it was just me and my sous chef. We didn't have any servers or a dishwasher or prep cook, and it was like we did everything. And then over time we built it up, and it built very organically. But yeah, I think nowadays people would come in and just be like, what is this crap? Like they don't have the right dishware, or where their wine list is, you have to bring your own wine. Like, I don't think diners are much more elevated now than they were in 2007.
How much does it cost to open a restaurant in Portland now, do you think? Like,
I mean,
if you're starting out opening a brick and mortar.
I don't know. I really don't. I mean, I opened Expatriate for 150, which was also really crazy. And that was like, 5 years ago. Super low budget. But yeah, I don't know. I think it depends on the kind of restaurant. I mean, there's restaurants that are opening for a couple million, $3 million, because they have really, really fancy like marble bathrooms and, beautiful hand towels and, like incredible banquettes and all that. I mean, every fixture in a restaurant costs so much money. I've always been, in the past anyway, more of I like being my only. I like not having business partners. I mean, in the past, I would say that. I think nowadays I'm kind of like, to be honest, on the lookout sort of for somebody that would want a partner and go into a project together, because the size of project that I'd want to run, I wouldn't be doing the scheduling and the back of the house stuff and the front of the house stuff. And, I feel like there's an opportunity for some great partnerships that can come forward, and so that like people don't have to bear the weight of $2 million of debt on their own, which sounds really frightening.
It does.
Yeah.
You wrote a piece about the industry for Eater this summer that was about kind of the boys' club culture of restaurant kitchens, and kind of about rethinking how kitchen staffs relate to each other and have fun together.
Yeah.
Has that kind of taken shape in your own businesses?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've been working on this for a while. I think I realized that after I would say I stepped aside a little bit in my duties when I went to write the book. I really wanted to write an excellent book. It's called Taste and Technique, and it is excellent.
It is.
And so I knew that I couldn't really perform my duties as a full-time, working every night on the line. I wasn't that person that could go home at 3:00 in the morning and start writing like some people I know. Mm-hmm. So crazy. And so when I took space from the restaurant, it was like I really needed to give the power to the people that were there and, give them some creative control and more autonomy and a voice. And that process was really painful for me. Like, it was really guilt-ridden. Like, I can't believe that they're working and I'm not working, even though I was at home doing like recipe testing and writing and on the phone with my author. Mm-hmm. I had to let go of a lot of stuff, but in doing that, the process of giving people a little bit more autonomy, I noticed it was showing up like they were so much happier, and that the food was better, because if I'm asking, Jake Stevens or Lucian Prowitz to come up with these menus, they are so much more invested in making the food amazing. And actually, it's like they can just understand it, because everyone cooks a little differently. And when a chef says, hey, this is my way or the highway, here's the recipe, do it, it doesn't feel the same as it does when people are truly doing stuff that they identify with. And so what I turned myself into more of an editor. I said, you guys are doing incredible work. I mean, I'll be honest, I think that, these guys are trained and they've worked in way more restaurants than I have. And, and just to be frank, I think my strength, isn't in just working the line every night. My strength is in like knitting the whole idea together and actually like going back to what you asked is creating community and making sure that people really love coming to work. I mean, that's kind of like, if I said to myself a long time ago, like, if people aren't having fun here, just shut the shit down. You know, like I'm not interested in having a thing where people have to, you know how people live for the weekend and they're like, oh, I gotta go to work today and all that. And it's just like, you know, chefs and restaurateurs, they spend too much time at work to feel like that. Like if you're going 80 hours a week, like working for the weekend, like that something's wrong with that equation. And so, you know, in particular for women, and minorities and just, the underserved populations of kitchens in particular, I feel like it's important to give a voice and give space and a place that people feel comfortable and welcomed. And I wrote that piece for Eater because I realized, and I am still realizing and still talking to all my friends in the industry about this constantly, which is that we just, we have to rewrite how it's done. We don't have, it's like kids who grew up like with abusive parents or something, you know, it's like, if you want to undo that stuff, like you have to put the work in and you have to go to therapy and you have to realize like how and why you don't want to like perpetrate those crimes to your own family. And to go forward is going to absolutely require that of the entire industry, really, front and back of the house, and the way that diners interact with, you know, people working in restaurants, and just like the whole culture of what it means to be in the service industry.
And traditionally, like the boys' club culture was a lot of kind of blowing off steam at the end of the night by drinking a ton, doing drugs probably.
Yeah, totally.
Has it made you rethink the way you kind of like have fun with your staff or ways that you kind of bond as a team?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would say that in a lot of ways, I think the whole industry is, and Portland in particular, has become sort of a hub for people who are trying to have lives outside of the restaurant industry, whether that's because they're, you know, running ultra marathons or having a family of 3 kids, or, you know, there's a lot of prominent Portland chefs who have interests outside of restaurants. And so, you know, for us, what we decided to do was, I think, rather than going out and partying with our staff, which we really don't do anymore. I mean, look, some of the cooks, I'm sure they go out after work. It's just that I'm not also there.
Right. It makes a difference.
It really does, because there's an inherent power dynamic there that's not appropriate. But, you know, it's taken us a long time to learn that. The time that we spend together is actually taking care of each other at the restaurant. So we switched a few years ago to cooking. We used to just, I don't know, starve ourselves, or, you know, and like eat really badly after work, or, you know, sometimes we'd get like something delivered if it was a long, busy day. And now we pretty much share the responsibility of cooking food. Like one person cooks a meal, and actually sometimes I cook at home for the staff. If it's like a busy day at the restaurant, I'll cook at home the night before, and I'll bring food in, and we sit together, and we actually sit every day and have a full lunch, and that's like better for us to be able to bond and spend time together than it is to go out and get blitzed after work, you know.
I was going to ask also, on the business side, is it hard to sustain a business with a really healthy, happy work culture? Does that put any strain on the finances?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Jesus, the finances are always strained in a restaurant.
Yeah.
But I think I was actually thinking you were going to ask something slightly different that I want to say. What I thought was you were going to say, do people sometimes reject this healthy living style?
That too.
You know, for like, you know, something a little more gruff. And I would say absolutely. Like, Beast isn't a place like for everybody. And when we interview as much for cooking as for how people are going to be in community with each other in the space. It's like personality based more than almost the cooking skills. I can teach that to anyone. But I have had people say, like, you know, and this was years ago, and I haven't heard this in a while, but I did have someone say, you know, I need to get a job that's more serious, where the chef is more mean. more like, hardcore, more yelling.
Because it's seen as like something that will help them grow. And
I'm learning so much because I'm like being held to the standard, these impossible standards, and I'm being, just berated or abused. And I think that that's something that people, they do come up with it. It's interesting. It's like right now I have a new chef de cuisine starting, and he actually is from New York, most of his training. And it's still a world that the ancient, it's not totally an East Coast, West Coast thing, because there are a lot of people here trying to clean their stuff up right now, for sure. Mm-hmm. Some really good friends of mine in particular. But I feel like, where I live, I kind of had to tell him, like, hey, man, it's not like New York here. Like we use the term "we" here a lot in the kitchen. Like not so much of like a, hey guys, this is how I'm going to tell you how to do this, but like this is how we're going to do this together. Kind of those sorts of like just subtle nuance of language that I find to be really an important part of people's comfort. But is it more expensive? Like, absolutely. Like. Probably, yeah.
Having a
we have
good
healthcare.
HR, having good benefits, it costs money.
It's so much more money. And actually, we're still trying to do this, and I don't know how long it's going to last or if it's going to last, but we're still a gratuity-free restaurant, which I know is like sort of, championed by Danny Meyer, and it was attempted by other restaurants in Portland that decided to pull back from it and not do that. I'm a year and a half in, and I'm still going strong with it. I pay my servers a high hourly, and everyone in the restaurant has health care if they work more than 30 hours a week. So I'm super proud of that. And I don't want to make more money and go back to having people not have health care. You know what I mean? Like I'd rather figure out like what's next in my career path so that I can take less money from the restaurant, and, diversify my interests in order to like create something that's really sustainable over a long period of time.
Absolutely. One last question. Your last book, Taste and Technique, came out about 2 years ago. Is that right? What is your next book going to be about? What do you want to write about next?
I don't know. I was just meeting with my agent. We had some nice oysters this week over at Grand Central Oyster Bar, and we're hanging out and talking about that. And, I don't know. I I know that everything is going to this sort of faster, easier, simpler, Mm-hmm. And I have a lot of ideas about that, but I don't know. I don't know how to distinguish it. Like, it's really important for me that it not be kind of run into all the other publications that are out there. Like, what else could I make that would be a unique twist? I don't know. Do you have any ideas?
I think you should do fancy edible arrangements. I think that's the move.
Awesome. I'll look into it.
Thank you so much for joining us, Naomi.
Yeah, thanks. It was fun.
Here's Matt with a burning food question for Chef Dan Holtzman.
Dan Holtzman, columnist of 100 Questions for My Friend the Chef. You are my friend the chef. I have a question for you.
I'm excited to answer it, or try.
Is it worth making your own hummus at home?
Not only is it worth making your own hummus at home, it's fun for the whole family, it's healthy and delicious, and it's very inexpensive. Here's the deal. If you happen to, like me, live in New York City, there are amazing hummus, like hummus-only restaurants and stores that you can get delicious hummus all over the place. It's a trend in the world to have delicious hummus available at restaurants. So you don't need to. But for most of the world, if you want great hummus, you have to make it at home, because the stuff you find in supermarkets has preservatives and other kind of like, less than, you get the...
Let's talk about Sabra. I agree. Like, Sabra is less than ideal. I think it's its own food group. It's not even hummus. It's just the shit you get at like the airport and you're starving, and it has those little discs of these pretzel discs.
The problem is that it is delicious. There's no one,
Great.
It's delicious. It's healthy. There's no reason not to eat it. But like, it doesn't necessarily resemble the hummus that I imagine from the fatherland or motherland. And the motherland or fatherland,
it can be anywhere.
It could be anywhere.
There's
that
no
hummus
origin.
is made.
We're not going to go there because
there is an origin. It's wherever chickpeas were grown and sesame
True.
seeds, which is like, where all of humanity started.
But let's find out. Tell me, what's the key to making hummus at home? Like, what are the ingredients that you're making? How do you make it?
Okay, so hummus is like 70% chickpeas. You can use canned chickpeas. However, I think that it's way less expensive. It's easy, and you get better results using your own, chickpeas. The only caveat is that you have to soak them overnight. Soak them with a little bit of baking soda, which helps to lower the pH, which helps them to become more tender and soft. It also helps to loosen the skins because you want to skim off some of the skins. Actually, like crazy diehard hummus aficionados will peel their skins off. That's not necessary, but you can do it. 30% is trina. What do you call that?
Tahini!
Tahini is like, it's this stuff that everybody just discovered for the first time, because for the first time, good quality tahini has been available in the United States. Tahini is like, it's 100% sesame seeds that have been roasted and then ground. And it ranges from absolutely terrible in quality, which is what's mostly available.
It's like the hippie stuff you get at the health food store.
The problem is that the sesame seeds, they have to be good quality to begin with, and then they're roasted so they can be burnt. And then, if you buy terrible old sesame seeds and then roast them and burn them and then leave them sitting around, they taste gross. Great tahini, however, is like intensely savory, slightly sweet, sometimes a little bit salty, and almost has that like puckering MSG-like quality that like gets your taste buds buzzing and enhances the flavor of almost anything else you put it on. There are great quality tahinis available on the internet.
Let's talk about Soom Tahini based in Philadelphia. I bought a bottle recently for like $12.
Good.
It's $12. It's not that much.
Listen, Soom Tahini, it's these three ladies. There's no reason not to buy Soom Tahini. Let's just start there, right? If you want the best and you want something that is like supporting a good cause and it is delicious and it's made with the greatest ingredient, like there's zero. You could throw anything at it, and no one's going to get angry at you for using Soom.
This podcast sponsored by Soom Tahini.
Soon to be sponsored by Soom.
Just kidding. It's not a sponsorship. Legitimate. Go buy some Soom Tahini. Dan Holzman, thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
The Taste Podcast is hosted by Matt Rodbard and me, Anna Heasel. The show is produced by Gabrielle Lewis, studio recordings by Pat Stango, theme music by Steve Rydell. Interviews are recorded live at Books Are Magic in Cobble Hill, Brooklyn, and at Penguin Random House Studios in Manhattan. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com. Thanks for listening.